Welcome to PixelTunesradio,
a podcast where we have fun
talking about video games
and video game music.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Ed.
And this is episode 90, Free Picks.
Free Picks. I don't know how many free picks we've done so far.
This is Free Picks 64.
Turbo Free Pick 16.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking on the way over here that, we do a 2-hour bi-weekly show.
Right.
And a lot of our friends who do VGM podcasts do hour-long weekly shows. So we've done the equivalent of 180 episodes.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
If you're talking like length of time. That is insane.
Yeah. I think that puts us right neck and neck with Legacy Music Hour, technically.
They're up there too.
Yeah. We're going to beat them. This is my goal in life.
Well, they do once a month now, so if we go on for like decades,
right.
we'll eventually catch up.
We'll eventually beat them, right?
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
Exactly. So we've got some really awesome picks. I'm pretty stoked for this episode. Like, this might be the best Free Picks episode we've ever done.
It's pretty good. I think we say that every Free Picks, but it's
yeah.
I think it's because it's what we're listening to currently. What's really grabbing us at the moment. So,
well, all regarding bands, like bands will come out with a new album and then they'll be like, "Oh, right, it's my best yet."
Yeah.
But this, I really do feel like we've got some really solid tracks. We've got a lot of awesome variety here. We've got some prog rock, we got some metal, we got some really awesome 80s stuff like dance. Like it's going to be good.
And we kind of flip the tables too. Usually I'm the one going with the more modern stuff,
right.
And you're the one going with the chip tunes, but we switched it kind of coincidentally. We didn't even talk about doing it, but yeah, pretty cool.
So we'll hit up our PixelChat segment where we answer your questions. We have one today.
No, we have 3 today.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we actually have questions coming in live over Facebook as we're recording.
Nice.
So let's start with our first question from our dear friend Cameron Werme. He asks, what's the first game you can recall beating? I've often thought about this myself, but I can't remember.
That's tough. I'm almost positive it was Zelda. The very first Zelda, because I remember going back and forth. It's funny because I was growing up, I didn't really have that many friends, but the friends that I did have would come over and play video games with me. And I remember I was friends with this kid, Mike, and his sister, Jen. And they would come over and hang out with me, but never together. It was the weirdest thing. Like Mike would come over and we would play Zelda, right? And then we'd get to a certain point and then we'd save. And then Jen would come over like another day and then we'd pick up right where Mike and I left off.
That's funny.
And so we did this until we got to the end of the game. And I think I beat it on my own. Which, I don't know, I mean...
Oh, after all the work they did with you?
Yeah.
You're like, I'm just going to beat it by myself.
I think so. Either that or the game got lost or something like that. But I know that eventually I did beat it and it was on my own and it was one of those like, oh my god, like I did it.
Yeah.
Like I beat the game. And that's one thing I did want to mention before we jump to your answer is I'm I beat the game kind of person. I know a lot of people are like, I finished it.
Yeah.
Like that seems to be more like people nowadays, like newer games. Like
there's a distinction nowadays.
Yeah.
Because you can beat the game without having done all of it.
Right.
Back in the NES days, when you beat the game, you pretty much did all of it.
Right.
You have to do everything in order to beat the game.
But it was also, I think, the terminology of beat the game. Like, when you beat a game, it's because, like, the game was beating you. And the games back then, at least, were so insanely hard.
Yeah.
And now I think, there's a lot more tools and games are a lot more user-friendly. There's save spots, there's checkpoints, there's all this stuff.
Yeah.
And back then, you didn't have that really. So I kind of feel like it's more like it was an achievement to beat a game back in the day, whereas nowadays you can beat a game, you're like, yeah, I finished this, I finished that.
Well, yeah, I suppose. I mean, but there are games like Hotline Miami, which beat you down, you know? So there are a wider range of games, I think, nowadays, and the more popular ones tend to be the ones that might be a little more user-friendly, but there's still a whole bunch of indie niche games out there that beat you down just as much as the NES games do.
Definitely.
So, but I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
For me, the first game I remember beating... This is rough because, I had an Atari 2600 before I had a Nintendo, and those games are short. So, there's games like, Chopper Command and Barnstorming that you can technically finish. You just get through all the barns, and it's not like a full length game that you need to beat.
It's not like Pac-Man or like Donkey Kong.
Right.
In that aspect.
In a traditional game sense, like the NES games, it would either be the original Super Mario Brothers or Commando on the NES. I remember beating both. Not too shortly after I got the Nintendo, but I was really young, and I don't remember which. I'm going to say Super Mario Brothers, because my brother and I, that's all we would play forever and ever and ever, and I'm pretty sure it was that. Yeah. Second question is from Jay Jorgensen, and he asks, Super Mario World or Mario Brothers 3? I just want to know what to play later.
It's funny he mentions that because our good friend Brazel the Gamer literally just posted like yesterday a video on Mario 3 versus Mario World. So, by the way, go check out that video. Personally, I'm going to go with Mario World. I grew up as a big fan of Mario 3, but dude, when Mario World came out, it was like on a whole nother level. I mean, graphically, musically, gameplay-wise, and one of the most frustrating things about Mario 3 is I love the suits. I love the frog suit. I love the Tanuki suit, the Hammer Brothers suit. But when you get those suits, you kind of covet them a little bit, like at least I do. And when I do end up using one, as soon as I lose it, I lose interest in the game. Because I'm so angry that I lost the suit. I would love to I wish those power-ups were more frequent, like they are in Super Mario 3D World or like those types of games.
Well, yeah, I mean the concept with the map system is cool because you can always go back to those levels that contain them and pick them up and then exit out of the level. But I don't know, for me it's like I look at Mario 3 and Mario World like I look at my kids. Like they're both extremely different. I both love them equally. I both spent so much time with them that they both have really good nostalgic memories for me. Mm-hmm. I tend to find myself as an older gamer going back to Mario 3 more than Mario World. Mm-hmm. I don't know why. I think
it's because you love one kid more than the other. I mean, you gotta as a parent.
I think just because Mario 3 is more prevalent in retro gaming videos, and the artwork is maybe it kind of like forces me to think about it more, so I want to play it more.
It was on another level regarding advertising too, because like the Wizard and people were so insanely pumped for Mario 3. Like it was like on a completely different level, and when the game came out, it was just like it sold like gangbusters.
I remember it being the first game where people wanted it before it came out. Like, people were like, this is the release date. This is awesome. Or other Nintendo games before that, it was like they came out when they came out, Yeah. Some of them dropped, the ones that Nintendo Power would feature would be like, oh, okay, this game is cool. But this game was like on par with modern games in terms of like pre-ordering and advertisements.
I mean, I remember Mario 2 had not come out yet. If I recall. And I went to a friend of mine's house because he got it as a birthday present. And I remember everyone at the party being stoked to play this game. And so Mario 2 was the first memory I have of that sort of thing where it's like, oh man, this game's coming out, it's going to be so good. So that kind of predated Mario 3, but everybody was talking about Mario 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So final answer?
Mario World.
Mario World. My final answer, I guess Mario 3.
Okay.
Even though it's super, super close.
Both are great.
So, sorry, Jay, that we couldn't give you a definitive answer of which one to play later.
Just roll the dice.
Yeah, literally roll the dice. If you get a 3, play Mario 3.
Yeah.
If you get a World, play Mario World. So.
All right, then.
Our third question is from, I don't know, Myla Wilson. I have no idea who she is.
Oh, no, boy.
She's just like my wife or something. She asks, what game has the most replayability for you? And then she goes, Ed, not Bionic Commando.
Nice.
So what do you think?
Which game has the most replayability for me? I want to say Mega Man 3, but I feel like that's too easy. I also don't
You can pick an easy answer if it's the correct answer.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so there's 6 games that rotate in my game system library as far as beating the game, and that's Mega Man 3, Metroid, Castlevania 2, Super Castlevania 4, and Ninja Gaiden 2. Those are the 5 games that I constantly rotate beating because I could beat them so easily.
So Castlevania 2? One of those games? Any of those games?
Any of those.
For me, Grand Theft Auto 5. Just because even after you beat the game, there's just so much. I mean, the city is so big. There's so many different little side quests and little challenges, and you can replay the levels and try to, do different things.
Yeah.
And so it's even after I've beaten the story mode twice, I've played through the full game twice, and still even after I beat them, I'm still wandering around doing stuff. Plus there's the online mode where there's tons of different challenges and they build racetracks in the sky that you can do loops and stuff. So for me, it's definitely that's the first game that came to mind as far as replayability goes.
That's a good point. Actually, I think I'm going to change my answer because I feel like it wasn't definitive. I'm going to say Saints Row 4.
Yeah.
Dude,
Same concept.
Same thing. I've gone back to... I love that game.
Yeah.
I've gone back, like... I've beaten the game twice, and now I'm going through Get Out of Hell, which is the expansion.
Right.
I'm not excited for Agents of Mayhem, which is the new Volition game.
Mayhem?
Agents.
Not
Agents of Mayhem. The new game by Volition, which is... they're the developers of Saints Row, called Agents of Mayhem. It's coming out, like, in the next couple weeks.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't grab me. I don't know what it is about it. It doesn't... I don't know. I really love the characters in Saints Row, like the Saints Row 3 and 4.
Yeah, and removing that kind of takes it away for you.
Yeah, and also the fact that you can transition your character, or at least on the 360, you were able to transition your character from 3 to 4. So it was like a cohesive story, which was really cool because, you know, you make a character and you see these characters and all the stuff that goes on between them, and then all of a sudden you're like... Oh, well, now I gotta play as these random characters from Agents of Mayhem, which I don't know about.
Makes sense.
So.
All right, we've got 2 more questions. We're gonna answer them quick because I know we're probably going long.
Oh, goodness.
These have popped up while we were actually answering other questions.
Okay.
This one's from Richard Kruse. He asks, do you have a song you love from a game you hate? I think we've kind of gone over this before.
The entire soundtrack to Ninja Crusaders.
Yeah?
Yes.
Ninja Crusaders.
For the NES. I'm gonna actually be reviewing it, so spoilers.
I don't know if I've ever even played that game.
Yeah. It is one of those games that I hate, but it's one of those games that I love. Like, you ever hate a game so much that you love it?
No, but
that's me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the first thing that came to mind for me was the soundtrack to Super Adventure Island. I've said before, I don't necessarily hate the game. I just don't really like the game. It's not fun for me.
Okay.
But that Yuzo Koshiro soundtrack is just
so good,
unbelievably amazing. And last question from Daniel Laughton. Which game has the best closing credit music in order to make completion all the more satisfying? For me, easy answer, Mega Man 2. You?
Closing credit music? I'm going to say either Shadow the Ninja or...
Oh, yeah, that's got a great ending tune.
Or Journey to Silius. Mm-hmm. Both have really great ending tracks. Agreed. We did a whole episode on ending tracks, though, so you guys can go back and listen to it.
Yeah, in which Cameron Werme actually guest hosted with us.
That is true.
So thank you, everyone, for asking your Pixel Chat questions. Please hit us up at pixeltunesradio@gmail.com to ask us more Pixel Chat questions. You can do it at any point, so if you're listening now and you have a question, go ahead and email us. We've been kind of like...
What color socks are you wearing?
We've been doing like emergency Pixel Chat shout-outs on Facebook because we haven't been getting too many, and then we get them all at once. So I know you guys have the questions.
Right.
Just feel free to ask whenever you get a chance to.
Yes.
All right, so what say we jump into the music? Maybe we can...
Free picks. Yeah, let's go with your pick first. What do you got for us?
First pick of the day is a little game called Sid Mead's Terraforming. This came out on the PC Engine CD in 1993. The track is called Sea of Clouds, which plays on stage 1, and it's composed by Katsuhiro Hayashi. And we're back. That was Stage 1, Sea of Clouds, from the game Sid Mead's Terraforming, which came out on the PC Engine CD in 1993. That was composed by Katsuhiro Hayashi. When I first heard this track, I was almost sure that it was a Western composer. It just sounded so much like a lot of the Amiga demo scene stuff that comes out, especially with that like kind of fake-ish guitar lead.
I guess I could see that, yeah.
And because it was Sid Mead's Terraforming, I figured it was produced by a European or an American company.
Yeah.
Totally wrong on all counts.
Huh.
It was actually developed by a Japanese company, and it's a really cool shoot 'em up, but the music in every stage is completely different genre. So you go through orchestral, you go through rock, you go through this. I really like the just that jazzy, smooth lead that really caught me. And even though it kind of feels a little repetitive at times, the little like jazzy noodling throughout just keeps it fresh for me.
Yeah, I mean the funk jazz or jazzy funk, because it has those funky bass lines in it, but then you've got these awesome synth leads that just permeate the entire track. I mean, and there's a lot to listen to in this track, so I found myself not like switching off later on in the track. In fact, I was actually more engaged as the track was fading out. I was like, oh, wait, I want to hear that. I want to hear that one more melody that's kind of popping through.
And the bass is insane too. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
It's just funking away there.
Reminds me a lot of like Spider-Man X-Men, like the Tim Follin.
Oh yeah,
bass, like,
you're right. Yeah.
Like
there are a lot of tracks in Spider-Man vs. the Kingpin on the Sega CD, which remind me a lot of this as well.
Yep.
It's kind of a good cross between all those genres. I mean, the game came out in 1993, so this is kind of where CD audio was at that time. It sounded very extremely well polished. No raw edges on any of those Sega CD or TurboGrafx CD games from that era. Everything sounds like it was, produced by somebody with 30 years worth of production experience, which is good.
Yeah.
So Katsuhiro Hayashi was a former member of Sega's SST band, a longtime Sega employee. He also went by the names Funky KH, Whooper Katsu, which is my favorite, Year Hayashi, or just K Hayashi. He composed the music to Quartet, which I think you chose way back on episode 8, which was a great track.
Yes.
That was I think the arcade version you picked. It was all wavetable.
Yeah, it was the arcade.
He was with Sega until the early 90s, and then he joined a developer called Media Ring, and he wrote some SNES or Super Famicom soundtracks like 04 Champ and a couple of the Bishojo Senshi Sailor Moon series games on that. Some other PC Engine CD titles he's worked on are Forgotten Worlds, Minesweeper, and Thunderblade, so if you like this track, go check out those soundtracks. They're also really good. He retired from composing in 2005, and now he lives as a ninja somewhere, probably in Japan.
He's a grandpa ninja, though, because he retired.
I mean, he's from SST band, so those are the kind of the godfathers of Japanese music.
Yes.
Sega's arcade titles had some great soundtracks. So
agreed.
Yeah, this game is fun. It's a horizontal shooter. Gameplay-wise, it felt a lot like the SNES game Phalanx.
Okay.
Green Force Fighter.
Phalanx?
Phalanx.
Phalanx?
I think it's Phalanx.
I just called it Phalanx.
That's Phalanx.
Yeah.
Phalanx.
I don't know.
It's a lot of fun. Very, very playable. What I like is on the title screen, you can choose the difficulty level you want, and it goes normal, hard, metal, and truth.
Nice. That's awesome.
So I was playing it on normal, and it was pretty easy. I'm sure probably hard will give you a little bit more of a challenge, and metal is just insane.
And truth is
just the truth.
Just the truth.
It's just how you should play the game.
Oh yeah.
But there's a whole bunch of different power-ups. Sid Mead. The reason his name is on the game is because he designed a lot of the special effects and graphics for the game. He is actually a cinematic special effects guy. He worked on Star Trek The Motion Picture, Blade Runner, Aliens, and Mission Impossible 3. So he's got a lot of special effects movie credits to his name. I guess he was doing a little bit with games back in the day.
That's random. You think he gets people coming up to him, asking him to sign...
Can you sign my copy of Terraforming?
Yeah.
But it's cool. There are a lot of really neat kind of special effects. Like the third level, you're in a volcano level, and as you're scrolling through it, volcanoes will explode, and when they explode, the whole screen turns white, and all the enemies and your ships, everything will become silhouette, like the explosion is behind you. So, they were kind of primitive effects, but they were neat looking for the time. I'm sure.
Cool.
If you were playing this game in '93, you'd be pretty wowed by them.
Oh yeah.
And all the enemy designs are very, very strange too, like geometric shapes and things that look like butts with noses sticking out of them.
Awesome.
And, kind of fun.
Sounds like a fun time.
Worth the play. Very, very playable. Very fun.
Let's go back 2 years to Space Invaders 91. Speaking of Sega, this is also called Space Invaders 90, but this is the Genesis port of that game, Space Invaders 91. The track is rounds 2, 11, and 14, and it's by Noriyuki Iwadare.
Right on.
Welcome back. That was Space Invaders 91, also called Space Invaders 90, and that came out on the Genesis. That track is rounds 2, 11, and 14, and it's by Noriyuki Iwadare. That track is awesome. Just funk dance.
That track screams Zuntata.
Yes, right? That's what I said.
Even though it's not by Hisayoshi Ogura, it feels so much like Ninja Warriors, it's not even funny.
Yeah, it's so good. I mean, just where do I start? I love that bass line. I love the, 80s dance bounce step kind of feel, a two-step thing.
That's kind of Zuntata's, of that era. Ogura's kind of, his trademark, almost.
But I also kind of feel like it could be on the UN Squadron soundtrack, too. I mean, it's got that energetic, flying atmosphere to it. And when you're playing this game, it doesn't match at all because, it's Space Invaders, but this is a much more vibrant looking Space Invaders than the old school, black and white Space Invaders, or even I think there was one that came out in '89, which was a colorized version of it, if I recall. But yeah, have you played this game?
Yeah, I have. And it's hard.
It is really difficult.
It's the enemies, there's a ton of enemies on the screen. Even first stage, it starts off pretty fast and furious. And you really need to start clearing enemies away because they start coming down the screen pretty rapidly. And if they get to the level that your ship is at, it's immediate game over.
Right.
So yeah. I wanted to play further because I wanted to hear more songs on the soundtrack as I was playing. I only was able to get up to this stage 2, which I think so. There's two sub-stages in stage 1, and then you move on to stage 2.
Yeah, it's that way throughout the entire game. It's basically the first stage has 2 parts to it. So it's not like normal Space Invaders where you beat a level and then it moves on to the next level. Yeah. Instead, they just restack the board and then you're just fighting the guys again. All the enemies look different though. They don't look identical or look very plain looking. Yeah. So they all look
rounder and animated.
A little bit more rounder, a little bit more animated. They also have more different shots as far as when they shoot you. So they have some shots that will spread, where they'll shoot it and then it'll spread out.
Oh yeah, 45-degree angles.
Yeah. And then there's other ones that you can normally hit the bullets and destroy them, but then there's ones where they'll shoot a red missile type thing, and that's you can't beat that.
Just cross Space Invaders with bullet hell, and it's the later levels are kind of on that level.
It's not as frantic, it still feels like old school Space Invaders, and then you can shoot the alien ships that kind of float back and forth, and if you do, you get power-ups that you can use throughout the entire game. They unfortunately don't really last that long. It's a clear shot that like a laser beam that shoots all the way up that kills an entire row. Yeah. So this is kind of the first reimagining, in my opinion, of Space Invaders that really worked quite well. I mean, this would set up the later games like the Space Invaders Extreme, the more advanced kind of crazy Space Invaders games that came out later on, on the DS and the PSP.
Yeah. I like that the sound effects were really simple too, because A, it's a simple game, and B, it didn't really get in the way of the music. It kind of allowed you to enjoy the soundtrack.
Yes,
especially with this tune, those crunchy cymbals on the sample channel. They never really they're allowed to play. You don't have like samples as far as sound effects go, so it never like interrupts that stuff. Just a lot of fun to listen to. It was good. It was challenging. I mean, it wasn't like if you died, it was because you made a mistake. It's not like there were like, hitboxes where a bullet would come 3 feet from you and you would still die anyway. You really need to practice and practice at this game to be good at it.
It felt a lot more fair than the other games, and you also had a little bit more mobility, like you were a little faster than the original Space Invaders. But yeah, this game's super cheap too, so I highly, highly recommend picking it up. It's like $8 or $9 that you can find it now.
Yeah.
And just get it. It's probably the best classic version of Space Invaders
for sure.
you can get.
And even if you're not a big fan of the game, there's a sound test, so you can just go and listen to all the music.
That's true. Noriyuki Iwadare, no stranger to the podcast. We played him quite a bit. Just going to take a couple random games that he's done. Grandia. He's pretty much done all or most of the Lunar games. Lunar 1, Lunar 2, Alien vs. Predator, The Last of His Clan in 1993. He did Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney, Dual Destinies in 2013. His latest game is to be announced as far as the date that it's coming out, but it was Langrisser Schwarz.
Neat.
So, yeah, he also did the Kid Icarus Uprising soundtrack with Motoi Sakuraba, Yuzo Koshiro, Masafumi Takada, Yasunori Matsuda, and Takahiro Nishi, which is like the ultimate collaboration. That'd be like if it was like Koji Kondo and like Hip Tanaka making a soundtrack,
Yeah. Pixelated Audio just sat down with him for like a good 3-hour interview.
So jealous. Oh, so good.
They talked about the Lunar, the Silver Star,
awesome.
and all of its ports. And he actually played some music live, like on the podcast.
That's
himself.
So great.
So
I haven't
definitely
listened
go check
to it yet.
that out.
I need to listen to it.
Yeah, I haven't gotten all the way through it, but I'm really enjoying it. He's a really cool dude.
I want to sneak my way into Pixelated Audio's recordings when they do live recordings with composers, because I mean we definitely do our best to try to get at composers, but I do feel that because they Brian speaks Japanese, so he totally has that in.
He has the in.
Right. And so that's awesome. I'm super happy for them, and I'm they're our podcast buddies, so we're happy that they're able to get this information and get these composers on their show.
Yeah.
But I always am wanting to secretly sneak onto their show and just be somehow hack in my way into their show and just be hey guys.
Hi.
Hey.
Mike Levy here.
Yeah. Noriyuki Adawe. I also do a VGM podcast. It's pretty cool. Yeah, we played you on our vocal tracks episode. Yeah, you're awesome, dude. Yeah, I don't know why I'm like a surfer.
Little fanboy there.
Yeah, like
surfer fanboy.
Surfer fanboy. All right, let's move on. What do we got next?
Well, speaking of simple games, let's check out another simple game. This one is called Perfect Billiard. It came out in the arcade in 1987. This is the gameplay music, and we do not know the composer. Let's take a listen. That was the gameplay song from Perfect Billiard. Came out in the arcade from Nihon Systems in 1987, composed by Mr. or Mrs. Unknown Unknownerson.
Right.
Composerson.
Yes.
I dedicate this track to Josh Adachi from the VGM Jukebox because this is a very elevator golf track. This is like exactly the kind of stuff that he likes.
Elevator golf.
Elevator/golf.
Yes.
Yes. But elevator golf would be actually a lot of fun. Oh, like elevator action returns.
Oh my
mixed
God.
with golf.
Yes.
That
Hot
would
Shots
be fun
golf.
as hell. We could definitely.
Dude, this needs to happen.
Call me.
This
Developers call me.
this track is probably the most loungy, relaxing track that has been picked for this episode.
Yeah, for sure.
Everything else is just insanely like super dance or super metal or super electronic. Like, and this track is just like, hey, I'm sipping an iced tea, hanging out on a couch,
That's
talking
exactly
about my
what I
feelings.
felt. Yeah. This kind of was an accidental pick almost. So here's the story. Logan, who's my youngest kid, he's 6 years old. He was playing Angry Birds Pop on his iPad, which is basically like Puzzle Bobble, Bust a Move, that kind of a game.
Okay.
He gets frustrated because it's one of those free-to-play games, and like they don't give you enough moves to finish it, and you gotta buy gems to get extra turns, and blah, 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 blah.
Wow.
I was like, if you like this game, I have Bust a Move. It's exactly the same.
Same thing.
We can play it 2 players. It's
Sure.
a lot of fun. So I bring him over to the Raspberry Pi and boot up the arcade stuff. I was going to play the Neo Geo version with him because it's a great game.
Yeah.
And so we're down by the P's on this whole list of arcade games that I have, and the cursor just happens to land on Perfect Billiard, and he saw the little video of it playing next to it, and he's like, "Oh, this looks fun. This looks cool." I was like, "All right." I mean, it's a green square with some dots moving around, but I was like, "All right, let's check it out."
Kids, man.
Yeah, so we start playing the game, and we get completely addicted to it. It's a 2-player game, but you switch you just pass the controller back and forth. You're basically playing billiards, but it's kind of like Lunar Pool, where you start off as a normal pool table, and once you finish that, you move on to levels with increasingly complex table shapes and pockets that like move around and stuff.
I've never played Lunar Pool. Is it any good?
It's great.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is it?
I mean,
Okay.
well, it doesn't really hold up to the pool games of today, but it kind of, the concept of that constantly changing shape of the table makes it really interesting
That's
to play.
cool.
It's not just like a rectangle with 6 pockets on it.
Sure.
And me being pretty decent at pool, I played a lot when I was, a teen and a young adult. And Logan being really into like physics and the way things work. I was teaching him, how to shoot for pockets using angles and stuff. And the game is very basic. It doesn't allow you to use English or any, complex pool techniques. But he was getting the hang of it, and we got up to like table 18, or we were playing for 3 hours.
Wow. That's impressive.
Just getting hooked on this game, as simple as it was. And this background music just kind of like became our thing. We would just hum it along together, and it's so fun, even though it's just, I think it uses the same chip as the Sega Master System does. It's just a 4-channel PSG chip.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so I had to use cheats and MAME, and also mute channel 4 on the chip, which was sound effects, to be able to get the game sitting still long enough to be able to play the song all the way through without the time running out.
Right.
So it took me quite a bit to get this track, but it's such a cool, relaxing little tune. The only thing I really have kind of an issue with is that little like siren towards the end where it goes like that sounds a little out of place. I think they were trying to go for like violin tremolos or something at that point, but it just didn't work out very well. But otherwise, it's got a nice little like brush percussion and some fun little piano lines in it. So it was cool. It was a good memory of me and Logan, so I figured I'd document it in the show.
Very cool. All right, well, we don't have any composer info, so we may as well jump into our next track. We're going from a very old game to a very new game. This is Star Ocean, Integrity and Faithlessness on the PlayStation 4. This game came out in 2016. The track is Face Off, and it's by Motoi Sakuraba. Welcome back. That was Star Ocean, Integrity, and Faithlessness. Such a stupid name. I'm sorry.
Still not as bad as the Kingdom Hearts game.
Right, yeah. PS4 was the game system that it was released on. Actually, it also came out on PS3 as well. 2016 was the year of release. Track is called Face Off. It's pretty much the battle theme. It's by Motoi Sakuraba. So this one came out a year ago, and I knew about it, and it got kind of like mixed to bad reviews.
Yeah.
And, I really liked the character design. I thought the characters looked cool. And I played the second Star Ocean game, and I never really got back into Star Ocean. And so I was sitting around one day, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to pick it up. So I kind of eBay cruised for a while, ended up picking up the collector's edition for only $60. It was like a third of the cost, and that was like a $160 game or something like that when it came out.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. And it came with the soundtrack and came with a bunch of other stuff. And this track was ripped right from the soundtrack that we got with the game. So the game is really good. I mean, I'm enjoying it. Here's the thing. RPGs for me are really hard to get into because I look at the amount of time that it's going to take to beat it, and I'm like, oh my god, no, I can't.
Yeah.
I can't. I hate to say it, but I'm a busy adult. I have lots of personal stuff going on. I have a full-time job. I have, my review show. I have other stuff. I have a house. I have animals.
What's that Cards Against Humanity card? Being a very important person with very important things to do, or something like that?
Exactly. So when I see like a 120-hour plus RPG like Xenoblade Chronicles X, I'm just like, nope, I'm good. I'm an adult. I got way too many things to do. So this game kind of...
It's like the Final Fantasy Mystic Quest of the Star Ocean series.
Yeah, this game really made it so that I felt more comfortable with starting this game because I knew going in after reading several reviews that it's like a 20-30 hour game or something like that. And so I started playing it, and I've been playing it at like an hour a clip, and I'm really digging it. It's fun. I mean, the characters are really cool looking. And, I mean, the voice acting is always really terrible in these JRPGs for the most part. Basically, the game starts in the year SD 537, also known as AD 2623, and it takes place between the second and third Star Ocean games. It takes place on this planet called Faithlessness, which is about 6,000 light years away from Earth. You play as this character, Fidel, and he's like the main character of the game. So you take your childhood friend, Miki, with you, and she's like your mage, sort of. And, you meet a couple characters on the way. And like I said, I'm only like 4 or 5 hours in, but it's really good so far. I met this girl named, I haven't found her name, but her name is Relia. And she's basically like, she's trapped in this ship that crash lands. It's like an invisible, like, translucent camouflage ship.
Okay.
So it busts open, and you find this girl, and you're like, what the hell? So you take her, and then you have all these bad guys attacking you, so you're like trying to get her to safety, and that's pretty much where I left off for the most part. But I mean, it's a Motoi Sakuraba soundtrack. It's fantastic. It's all really good stuff. This is just like a awesome prog rock track.
Yeah.
I love those Hammond organs.
I feel like, a lot of his earlier stuff was on the rock side.
Yeah.
And a lot of his later stuff is on the orchestral side. This is a nice melding between his two styles.
Yep.
And he blended them very, very well.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you pick this particular track over all the other songs that are on the soundtrack?
So, again, I'm pretty early into the game, so most of the music...
Also, being a battle track, you probably heard this quite a bit.
Right. Most of the music that I've been hearing so far has been mostly orchestral stuff, and it's all good. I like orchestral music, but this track really stood out to me because it is the battle theme that you hear, and the battles, unfortunately, are very quick in the sense that, you see an enemy, you go over to them. It's like Chrono Trigger, where you run over to an enemy, you start attacking them, they come over to you, and it's a real-time battle system, like an action real-time. So it feels very like Zelda-ish at points, but not as like freeform.
Like the later Final Fantasy games, where kind of contained into an area, but still freeform fighting.
Yeah, this is like if Final Fantasy 13 was good, in my opinion, because
and more simple.
Yeah, well, definitely. Like the menu structure and the menu system is so easy to navigate. The magic system is easy to navigate. Like this felt very much like Final Fantasy 7 to me in the sense that I was able to boot it up right away and start playing. And the beginning, it kind of dragged a little bit. It wasn't like action immediately like in Final Fantasy 7, but within, I'd say, like the first 5 minutes I was fighting. So
Cool.
I was like learning how to use the battle system. So it's good. I definitely recommend it. It's the sort of game where if you're looking for a shorter JRPG to play, you don't want to invest that much time in, you want some awesome tunes, I would recommend this game.
Cool.
It's pretty cool. One other thing I did want to mention, which is really cool, if you get the game day one, you get a day one code for some downloadable content, and 2 of the tracks from Valkyrie Profile 1 and 2 are actually in the game. So once you get the DLC, and you could do this on the fly anytime you want, you could change the battle theme to the Valkyrie Profile 1 battle theme or Valkyrie Profile 2 battle theme, and you could switch it on and off. So if you get kind of bored with hearing this battle theme constantly, you can switch to those.
Pretty cool.
And it kind of
capitalizing off of Sakuraba's name on the game.
Exactly. So yeah, this game was developed by Tri-Ace, the same company that did all the other Star Ocean. So it's definitely really recommended.
Cool.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So
All right.
what's next?
Next up is a Game Boy game called Daiku no Gensan Robot Teikoku no Yabo, otherwise simply known as Hammer and Harry 2. This is the ending theme from Ikuko Mimori.
Hey everyone, it's Mike
And Ed
from PixelTunes Radio. With 90 episodes under our belt, it's become harder and harder to dream up new ideas for commercials for episodes.
Sometimes you just can't think of a solid skit or advertisement using the games picked for each episode.
Tell me about it, especially when it comes to free picks.
I wish that there was some way we could... Hello there. Yeah, I guess we kind of set that for Ryu to show up, didn't we?
Yup. Hey Ryu, do you have anything for us that can help us create commercials?
Way ahead of you, boys. Check out Commercial Be Here.
Commercial be here? How does it work?
Press down on this button here, and it will grab a random segment from a previously written commercial. Then it compiles everything into something that sounds brand new. Give it a try.
Okay. Oh, what's at the bottom of that button? Is that a needle that poked me? Ow, I'm bleeding.
Oh, that's the blood sacrifice. Nothing in life is for free, boys.
Okay, me next. Ow! 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 Ow!
Hey, you're hogging it. Let me press. Ow! Ow! Ow!
I need like a juice box and a cookie or something.
Yeah, was that enough?
It sure was. Let's give it a listen, shall we?
Hi, I'm Eric Lecard, and I'd like to tell you a little story.
How many times I gotta tell you? Don't read the fan mail!
But Mario! The kids!
Screw the kids! We gotta escape Ice World!
Wait, what?
But fingers are lame, right? All your fingers are good for is picking your nose.
Introducing Pac-Man, Arkham Asylum.
Oh man, this game is pretty good, but this awful soundtrack makes me want to turn it off and go to sleep. What the hell, Uncle? That was totally lame.
Sentinel returns.
No way, Jose. I'm not putting my name on this corporate sugar factory no matter how much you pay me.
Does the ability to be genetically modified into a leaping lizard or sunglass-wearing wolfman with chain guns for hands whet your appetite?
That's impossible. I'm Steven Seagal. I'm the final option.
Oh man, you totally wrecked my balls.
Uppercutting zombies every day was alright for a few years, but I had that urge to start cooking again.
This baby runs on pure testosterone and beer.
Tetraporta Pega Magic Block Slide Dropper!
Tetraporta Pega Magic Block Slide Dropper!
Tetraporta Pega Magic Block Slide Dropper Extreme!
For the Nintendo NEX.
NES Network.
That was terrible.
This is the worst invention yet, Ryu.
Hey, they can't all be gems. Ninja, out.
Well, I guess we'll just have to write commercials the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, I guess so. Now, where's that cookie?
Oh no, Ed, don't worry, I'll baby bird feed it to you.
Oh, no, I'm not really passed out. God.
No, Ed,
Get away
you need
from me.
sustenance. Let me help.
You just want to kiss me, don't
No,
you?
I
This
just
is really disgusting.
No, I want to make sure you
So
have
is over.
food.
Go, gone. And welcome back. That was Daiku no Gensan Robot Teikoku no Yabo. For the Game Boy, that was the ending theme from Ikuko Mimori. And yeah, Mike was just saying while we were playing this, we usually don't play too many ending themes during our show, especially not in the middle of the show. But
Right.
I don't know, I really like this one. The whole soundtrack is great. It's just the stage themes are really short. They're like less than 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And this ending track kind of incorporates, kind of like Mega Man 2 does, it incorporates a lot of the different themes from a lot of the different stages into the ending theme.
Okay.
So I felt it was kind of a good representation of the whole soundtrack. I really like that square wave bass and the percussion. It's like dun 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 dun, very staccato, like that kind of stuff I really like, very groove oriented. And it kind of moves to a couple different styles of music as it goes through. It gets a little faster.
It changes up in the middle,
Yeah.
which I really liked. Because initially I was like, all right, this is seeming like a, pretty standard ending track. Like, oh, you did it, it's very, like, final sounding.
Yeah.
And then it kind of, the pace picks up and you're like, oh, wait, okay, the track's still going on. So it kind of changed it up and it kept it engaging for me, halfway through.
Yeah, the stereo effects are really nice too on the leads. You kind of get those little twinkly, they go back and forth to the different speakers. So, if you were playing it on a regular Game Boy, you'd never notice that stuff. But in the headphones, it sounds really cool.
Yeah.
The music, I think, kind of matches the game a bit because while the first Hammer and Harry was more of like a traditional, kind of a side-scrolling, very simple kind of game, the sequel is like all sci-fi, like Mega Man style. Everything's very detailed. Like the graphics are so detailed that I can't even imagine how this would look on an original Game Boy. Because there's like different shades of gray, and in the background there's like circuits, and like all this stuff is flashing, and you're trying to move your character in front of it.
This one came out in the US or no?
I don't think so, no.
It's really funny because the Hammer and Harry series would do really well if it came out in the States, but I think the only game that came out in the States was the PSP game.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I have that one.
That's like the third or fourth in the series?
No,
something
that's
like
like way later.
Is it?
The PSP?
I didn't realize there had been so many of them.
Dude, there's like a bunch. Yeah, there's a lot of Hammer and Harry games. There was one for Famicom, actually one for Famicom, and I think two for Game Boy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then there was some other ones, maybe for the PlayStation? I don't know, I can't remember, but I do know that this is maybe the fourth or fifth. There could be more. I don't know.
Well, it's called Hammer and Harry 2.
This one is. Yeah.
Right. So, you're talking,
I'm talking about the PSP one.
version. I got
Right. Yeah, this one I think is 2 or 3.
I'm kind of new to this series. I kind of just discovered it recently, so I'm going to have to go and check the other games out because this one is
fun.
a hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's a great side-scrolling platformer. There are stages with like you're walking on like these kind of like trampoline things with claws that are like gripping onto different platforms in the background as you go through. Lots of really innovative uses of gameplay. And then you kind of get this power-up system that I guess is kind of similar to like Kirby. You destroy different enemies and they give you different power-ups that are related to them, and then you hammer your enemies with different types of blocks and they have different types of powers and stuff.
Luckily, the Game Boy is region-free, so anybody can play this one.
Yeah, exactly. Or, I think this would probably be better played on a backlit system, especially if you have like a Game Boy Advance SP or something.
I couldn't even imagine playing a Game Boy without some kind of a
maybe
backlit.
Like if you're playing like Tetris or something, but just anything more complex than that.
Oh,
the graphics are just almost indistinguishable.
Yeah.
This game in particular would not lend itself well to any sort of non-backlit system.
It's like playing on the Game Boy Advance, like the original Game Boy Advance, without any kind of backlit screen.
I had a lot of experience on that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So the music, it's pretty unique for Game Boy as far as like the sound goes. Ikuko Momori's basically, she was an IREM employee. She joined Tamtex's IREM division in 1986 and composed music to a bunch of their games until she left and joined Koei in 1995. She only spent like a year with them and just worked on kind of a sound design, but after that in 96 she went and joined HAL Laboratory.
Okay.
So she left there in 1999 and we haven't heard from her since, so I don't know what she's doing to this day. While she was with IREM, she composed games like Super Load Runner on the Famicom Disk System. That was her first title in 1987. She did sound effects for Metal Storm. Everybody knows that $300 game. Spartan X2, she did the music for. We played a track from that. That was the Kung Fu 2 game.
Great soundtrack.
Came out in 1991. Bomberman World for the arcade in 92. R-Type 3 Third Lightning in 1993 for the SNES. And then the only game she worked on while she was at HAL was the music for Pokemon Snap on the N64. Okay. So she's got some pretty good games under her name.
Spartan X2 is great. We played that on the Famicom Japan episode with We Guy.
Yep. And R-Type 3 The Third Lightning has a fantastic soundtrack as well. So she's got some good stuff. But who knows what she's doing now. Maybe she went home to be a family man.
Okay. Oh boy.
Combed her hair up in like a big platform kind of deal. She became Guile is what I'm trying to say.
Yes. Hair and all. All right, let's move on to our next game. This is a head banger. This is a game that I wanted to play a track from for a long time. On Tamarama for the Nintendo DS. It came out in 2007. The track is Guitar Fiend, and it's by Toshikazu Tanaka, Mitsuhiro Kaneda, Kimihiro Abe, and Noriyuki Kamekura. Let's give it a listen. Alright, welcome back. That was On Tamarama. Sounds like Bananarama. for the
What's
Nintendo.
Tamarama and why are you on it?
Yeah. Well, it came out for the Nintendo DS in 2007. That track was Guitar Fiend, and it was by Toshikazu Tanaka. He specifically did this track. The entire soundtrack's by Mitsuhiro Kaneda, Kimihiro Abe, and Noriyuki Kamikura. Now, this game is a rhythm-based game, very similar to kind of like a combination of DDR and like Elite Beat Agents in a way, because you're using the touch screen. The way it works is there's these notes that kind of scroll through, and you've got to circle with the stylus the notes. You could also, I think, double tap the notes as well. There's different colored notes, and they do different colored abilities. And the notes have, I don't want to say personalities, but they're like little characters on their own, sort of. The game has a story mode as well. The story mode's meh. Basically, you go from place to place. You're starting to become a Onta Maestro, yes. So you can play as one of two characters, either Beat or Rest. Beat is the boy, Rest is the girl.
Okay.
They kind of interact with one another a little bit as the story goes on. And then you have a teacher, her name's Koda, and she teaches you in the Anta Conservatory. And
They're really hammering this home, aren't they?
yeah, definitely. This is a game by Noise Factory, who did, like Sengoku 3, a bunch of Neo Geo stuff. It was published in North America by Atlas. So it really does kind of have visually an Atlas feel to it. The characters are pretty standard anime. They're like a weird cross between like anime and chibi a little bit.
Okay.
But as you go along, you're moving from place to place on the map in the story mode, and you're encountering all these different characters, and they're also kind of like using these Ontamas. So you've got to
It's kind of just
fight
a
them.
society where you're kind of like...
Kind of like Pokemon.
Everything's rhythm oriented.
Yeah, kind of like Pokemon in a way, where they're using their Ontamas, and then you have to fight with your Ontamas.
So Ontamas they're musical creatures.
They're musical notes basically, but they're they have their own personality.
Okay.
It's really
so they're
weird.
sentient
Yeah.
music pieces.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it.
Yeah. This is one of the final tracks, because it's funny, as the soundtrack goes on, I don't know if you actually listen to any of the other tracks on the soundtrack.
Yeah, a whole bunch of different genres.
Dude, it's crazy. There's like funk, there's jazz, there's dance, there's a techno, electronic. There's one track which I'm holding for a very specific reason.
The dubstep one, right?
Yeah, definitely the dubstep one. And then there's the two heavy metal tracks towards the end. There's this one, which is like kind of the first boss, and then you play the like big baddie, which is, I think his name is Blast, if I recall.
Okay.
And he is the one who's like, he's a demon, and he's trying to capture all these Ontamas so that way he can control all of them.
Gotcha.
But his track is like super metal. I mean, it was like borderline death thrash metal, and I was like, I can't play this for Ed. He'll just like be crying the entire time.
Blood coming out of my ears.
Yeah, just no. So this game is great. It's a lot of fun. If you like rhythm games and you want like a little bit more variety musically, you don't want like super poppy alternative rock like in Elite Beat Agents or like, tracks that, if you're looking for something a little bit more Japanese sounding.
Something that has a little bit of something for everybody.
Right, and where it's, not relying on tracks that, we obviously can't play licensed. This is like a nice, a really good soundtrack. So
because I can tolerate genres that I don't normally listen to in a game if it's like one of the songs.
Sure.
If the entire game is obviously based on that genre, then I get turned off.
Right. Yeah, no, I would definitely recommend the soundtrack to anybody. I mean, it's got so many different types of music, and it's fairly cheap. I picked it up on Amazon, I think, for like maybe $13 or so. So totally worth it. As far as the track composers go, Toshikazu Tanaka, as we said earlier, he composed this track. He's actually from Studio Aqua, is who he's labeled being from. He's mostly done a lot of stuff for SNK, going all the way back to 1987 with the Kari Warriors. He did sound for POW, Prisoners of War. He did King of the Monsters, Fatal Fury, Power Instinct, King of the Monsters 2, Sengoku 3. He was the sound producer. And so he's mainly stuck to sound producing, which is kind of vague, but he was labeled as the composer for this track.
Cool.
Yeah. And then the rest of the soundtrack, Mitsuhiro Kaneda worked on a lot of Atlas-based stuff, Grand Kingdom, Odin Sphere, Crimson Shroud. Also did arrangements for Lord of Arcana, which we played a little while ago. I think we played that, in the last Free Picks?
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Yeah. Kimihiro Abe worked on Crimson Shroud in 2012. Grim Grimoire, Odin Sphere, like a lot of those like Atlas games.
All these guys are members of Base Escape,
right?
Which is Hitoshi Sakimoto's company.
Yes.
That he formed.
Noriyuki Kamikura, who was the last composer, worked on Muramasa the Demon Blade. They must have, for Vanillaware, they're the developers of
like
a couple
Odin
of those
Sphere
games.
and all that stuff.
Odin Sphere and all that, yeah. So they must have grabbed these guys. He did Let's Tap in 2008, Yee's Memory of Celceta, arranged work for that, and then Adventures of Mana in 2016. Not going to go into every single game that these guys have made, because they've definitely made quite a hefty amount, but I feel like if you like this soundtrack, you'll probably like the rest of their stuff. So
for sure,
let's move on to our next game.
All right, next one is one that I've been holding on to for ages and ages and ages, and only recently could I actually play any music from it. This is Lego City Undercover. Came out in 2013 on the Wii U, and then very recently on the PC and PS4. This is Time Trial. The game was composed by Simon Withenshaw and Sudi Ravel. This particular track is from Sudi Ravel. That was Time Trial from Sudi Ravel, also game composition by Simon Withenshaw. That was Lego City Undercover from the PC version, but it also came out on the PS4 and the Wii U starting in 2013. I had so much trouble picking a track from this game because the whole game has such an amazing soundtrack. You know, you wouldn't really think it from a Lego game because most of the previous Lego games that have been based on already existing properties have just been like Star Wars music or Indiana Jones music. This is one of the first games that they made that had its own, you know, original kind of property to it. So it had to be all original music, and so the composing style was kind of half like 70s funk, like very like cop show style stuff, and then half of this really intense kind of acid house music, very driving for like all the action and fighting sequences. I love this one because it has that acid house sound, and it's got those big thick drums, some really cool kind of like breakdowns in the middle where the synths get very growly and grindy. It's just, you know, my type of music.
Yeah, this track is, I mean, it was entertaining and enjoyable. I enjoyed listening to it. I feel like I would get into it more if I had played the game. Yeah. Because I feel like you kind of need that experience with this game to know where it plays and, you know, what's happening during it.
Yeah.
But regarding the track itself, I thought it was well done. It's got that really like thick, meaty bass line. It's, you know, really like funk infused.
Yeah, very British sounding.
Yeah, definitely very British sounding. Very like spy-esque. Like this could easily be in like
Alias or one of those kind of shows.
Yeah, James Bond type stuff.
Yeah, especially the newer Bonds.
Yes.
So for a little context, where this plays is... So the game is kind of like a cross between a Lego game and Grand Theft Auto, where you have this huge city to explore. There are stages within this city that are kind of around the map that follow a storyline, but then there's also other things that you can do within the city to gain power-ups and earn more studs and to buy more stuff, etc., etc. Throughout the map, there are these little locations where if you find them, you can do a time trial. So you do like this obstacle course that goes like up and over buildings, and you have to do jumps and like, you know, climb across walls and stuff, and you have to do it within a time limit. So this is where the song plays. You get to one of those little areas, a countdown starts, and then it kind of shows you the way to get through these obstacle courses. So the music is really kind of keeping you moving along. It always feels like time is running out. It's got that very kind of running out against the clock kind of feeling to it. So it was one of my favorite tracks in the game, and those time trials are always really fun to do, so it kind of stood out for me. Cool. Yeah, this game, man, I played it. I pre-ordered it when the Wii U came out because I was really, really into the Lego games back then, and I'd heard about the open world stuff and really was like excited about it. It was supposed to come out shortly after the Wii U got released, but it kept getting delayed. And so I just kept my pre-order. I was like, I'm gonna get it. It's a Lego game. It cannot be bad. And so it finally came out like, I don't know, 6 to 8 months after it was originally supposed to be released. And I loved it. I played it all the way through. I 100%ed it. This is another game, like from that question about replayability at the beginning of the show, that, you know, even after I played it, I still went back kind of like Grand Theft Auto style.
Right.
I just kept on going through all the stuff that you could find. And so I did that. And then when it came out on PC and PS4, I was like, I'm gonna get this again. So I got it. Nice. I was like, I just wanted to see the differences. What did they change?
Better
the graphics better, etc., etc. And it's 2-player mode now too, which it wasn't on the Wii U. Cool. So you can get two characters at the same time. And so I was like, oh yeah, this is pretty cool. And I originally just got it because I wanted to see if the soundtrack was available, because it was all encoded in a way that I couldn't rip from the Wii U game.
Right.
And so I was going through the files on the PC version, and it was like all right there in Ogg Vorbis format. And I'm like, yes, I can have the whole soundtrack finally. Nice. So that's why it's coming in this show. Even if you're not a big Lego game fan, I think you'd still enjoy this just because there's so much content. So many kind of like puzzle meets action meets driving and racing. There's so many things to do. Plus the writing is absolutely hilarious. If you like the Lego movie, I think it's by the same writers. So It's got that same kind of off-kilter sense of humor with some like crazy characters and stuff. So tons of fun. A little bit about the composers. Simon Withenshaw, who did most of the kind of like I was talking about, the 70s funk spy style music. He started composing in 2003, where he worked on Looney Tunes Back in Action for the PS2, and he was working for Warthog Games at the time. While he was with Warthog, he also did the music for Battlestar Galactica and Richard Burns Rally. Then he went freelance in 2004, and he worked on games like Destruction Derby Arenas and Diary Girl, whatever that is.
Diary Girl. Is it a diary that's a girl, or is it a diary for a girl?
It was actually originally a Japanese title called Diarrhea Girl, and then they just cleaned it up a little bit.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding.
They cleaned it up a little bit?
Literally.
Delicious. Delicious.
So in 2011, he joined Traveler's Tales as part of their audio team for LEGO Star Wars 3, and then he's worked only on LEGO games. He did stuff like the Harry Potter games, I think the second one, the episodes 5 through 7 or whatever.
Right.
LEGO Pirates of the Caribbean, LEGO Jurassic World, and of course LEGO City Undercover. Sudi Ravel, he did most of the techno kind of stuff like the track I just played.
Right.
He was part of a British rave duo called Together, and they were an acid house group. And they had a really big hit back in the early 90s called Hardcore Uproar, which I don't think ever made it big in the States, but maybe
Never
some
heard
of our
of it.
European listeners might remember it.
Yeah.
But that was really big in the club scene. He started composing back in 1994 in Tin Star, and I remember when you played that Tin Star track on our Western episode, I said, oh, he wrote the music for LEGO City Undercover. I really want to play something like that. And I think I mentioned that I wasn't able to rip the music from it. So I had been wanting to do this for a while. And then he worked with Withenshaw on a whole bunch of games like the Looney Tunes Back in Action, Diary Girl, LEGO Pirates of the Caribbean, LEGO Harry Potter, all that stuff too. So they kind of come as a team. So they probably are like, friends in real life because they've worked for different publishers together and they kind of move around together doing this composition. And I like how they kind of both have their individual sounds. So especially like Lego games when they're working, because there's so many different types of sequences in the Lego games that I think their individual composing styles really kind of combine to help. And then there are some tracks in this game that are kind of a combination between like the more organic style of Withenshaw and the techno style of Ravel. So they probably collaborate on those tracks and then do their individual stuff for the cinematics and for the action sequences. So they're a pretty good composing team.
Diary Girl's commercial would be like a late 80s, early 90s toy commercial.
Yeah.
The jingle would be like, Diary Girl, you're a girl and it's your diary. And then, there would have to be a girl writing in a diary, and then she looks up at the camera and goes, wow.
Yes.
Because, 80s and 90s.
And then you hear...
Speaking of farts, let's jump into Phantom Breaker. Phantom Breaker Battlegrounds Overdrive for the PlayStation 4 and Xbox Live Arcade. This came out in 2013. This track is Stage 0, also known as Akihabara, and this is by Takeshi Abo.
Oh, God.
Welcome back. That was Phantom Breaker Battlegrounds Overdrive, and it came out on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox Live Arcade in 2013. That was the Xbox Live Arcade version that came out on the 360, and then it got ported to the PlayStation 4 as the Overdrive moniker.
Yeah, it's out on PC as well.
Yes. Stage Zero Akihabara is the name of the track, and it's by Takeshi Abo. That game is really fun. I mean, so the Phantom Breaker games, I think there's been one other. It's a spin-off. This one is a spin-off of the fighting game also called Phantom Breaker. But Phantom Breaker Battlegrounds Overdrive is essentially a chibi version, like the SD or chibi versions of the characters that you play as: Mikoto, Waka, Itsuki, and Yuzuha. And basically you play as these 4 girls I just mentioned, who all like look different. They all are dressed differently. They're all very colorful and cool looking. One of them's like a Japanese priestess. One of them's like a maid. I don't know, like,
yeah,
they're all random,
kind of like the stereotypical anime girl style
pretty
caricatures.
Much. Yeah.
The art style really turned me off on this particular version of the game.
Okay.
Even though it plays like a cross between like Odin Sphere and like Guardian Heroes on the Saturn.
Yes.
Like that, the gameplay really drew me in.
Yes.
The art style was a little too cartoony. Like I like the original Phantom Breaker series where it's a little more, I don't know,
adult?
I'm not gonna say more mature, less chibi.
Right.
basically. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't necessarily mind the chibi look. It really all depends. This game plays very similar to, as you mentioned, Guardian Heroes or Scott Pilgrim vs. the World.
Oh, yeah.
As well, the game. So they all have very similar like music and menus and gameplay styles. So the reason why it's very similar to Guardian Heroes is because you can bounce back and forth between the foreground and the background.
Different planes of attack. Yeah.
Right. But the game is just so frantic. There's so much going on. When you defeat bad guys, it's a beat 'em up. So when you defeat bad guys, they drop like tons and tons of like little items
gems
that you can, gems and stuff that you can grab. And these gems kind of help you with leveling up. The game is similar to Scott Pilgrim because of that reason. So you have to kind of grind to get higher levels, so that way you'll be strong enough to beat the bad guys, and sometimes you just can't. So you have to go back to previous levels and grind.
Yeah. That's where my similarity to Odin Sphere kind of came in, because that game required a whole lot of grinding.
Well, the difference is Odin Sphere is basically, in my opinion, inventory management the game.
Yeah, in a sense.
So, which they fixed a lot of that supposedly for the PlayStation 4 version, where the inventory wasn't so small, so that you had to like drop items. So this game there's none of that. There's no items picking up in that sense. It's basically a pretty straightforward standard beat 'em up. Great music. Like the whole soundtrack is really fantastic. It's all like 8-bit infused type of music, but the drums are more modern sounding. They got that like pitter patter kind of feel to it, more like garage band-esque.
This reminds me of like if somebody grafted a VRC6 chip onto a Game Boy.
Okay.
Because you get that stereo feel, and that Game Boy style square leads, but then you've also got those extra kind of sawtooth channels and stuff in the background with the percussion probably couldn't have been done on a Game Boy or a VRC6 or an NES, so it's probably the only thing that really kind of stands out. The number of channels and the type of sounds all kind of feels like an enhanced version of Game Boy hardware or something like that.
There's tons of melody here in this track, and my favorite part of the track is right after kind of the beginning, which is a little bit slower. It's got the dun 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 dun. It's more like a late 70s disco kind of feel.
Anime
to
theme
it.
song is what I got from it.
Yeah, and then it kind of kicks into this like really like
that
heavy
metal
upbeat,
groove.
That really awesome heavy like dun 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 dun. That's really where the track really picks up for me, and the drums just sound so crisp and tight right in that area, and then it kind of slows down a little bit like right after that part, and it gets this like I don't know, like the drums kind of go into this almost like reggae feel to it. They've got like a slower, much more like vibe feel
like a dub
to
feel,
it.
yeah,
a little bit, and then it picks right up into the loop. So it's a great track, and I've been wanting to play this track for a long time. I'm glad that I was able to finally like remember all of a sudden, because I picked up the PlayStation 4 version fairly recently. The reason why I did is because there's downloadable content that you can get for the game, and it's like, I don't know, $2-3, but it adds on the FM synth version of the soundtrack that you can enable. And those tracks are, I don't know, I kind of at times appreciate the NES track sounding a little bit more, but it's nice to kind of have that feeling that you can, change back and forth between the more FM synth sound, like, more like PC Engine kind of sound to it, versus the NES stuff. So I kind of was bouncing back and forth as I was playing through the game. And it helps too because when you're kind of stuck at a point where you can't level, like you can't get past a boss, you have to replay a different level or replay the previous level. And you can go back in and change the music to the, you know, the more FM synth sounding version of the soundtrack. So that way you at least aren't hearing the same music over and over again, same composition, but the arrangement's totally different. So it's good stuff.
It's also nice having a modern game with chiptune music, but actually composed by an old school chiptune composer.
Yes.
Rather than, I'm not saying that the newer, new school demo scene guys that do chiptune are bad or anything. It's just this game has more of like that authentic kind of old school video game feel to it.
Yeah. Takeshi Abo worked on Might and Magic Clowns of Zine back in 1993.
Clowns?
Clouds.
You said clowns.
I said clowns? Clouds of Zine.
Clowns of Zine sounds like a better game, though.
Yes. He actually did musical arrangement, apparently, for Legend of Corandia, which we've talked about quite a bit.
Interesting. Maybe for one of the Japanese PC systems.
That's what I'm thinking, yeah. Starfire in 1994, jumping ahead a little bit, did also Legend of Corandia. Hand of Fate in 1995, again, most likely arrangement. Pepsi Man in 1999,
Great
did
game.
sound effects. Oh yeah, totally. My Merry May in 2002, then started working on the Phantom Breaker Battleground soundtrack, and Cycle Pass Mandatory Happiness in 2016. His last game he's credited for as Mages Inc., which I believe is like the
company
that
for,
did Mega Dimension Neptunia 7, which I don't know too much about, but I always see when I go to
it's a shooter.
I think it's a shmup, like a bullet hell game.
Right,
yeah.
that's what I meant, yeah.
Yep. All right, so that's that. Yeah, definitely check out Phantom Breaker, because the soundtrack's great, the gameplay's great, it's overall fun, and it's multiplayer too, and it's online enabled too, so hit me up online. Let's play some. If you got the PlayStation 4 version, let's play.
Let's fart together.
Break
some phantoms.
Yeah. What's next?
Next up is a Famicom game called Great Battle Cyber. This came out on the Famicom in 1992. This is stages 1, 7, and 10 from Junya Kozukai.
Welcome back. That was Great Battle Cyber for the NES. It came out in 1992. The track was stages 1, 7, and 10, and that's by Junya Kozukai. I gotta say, Ed, you feeling okay? You picked a mic track.
I did pick a mic track.
Yes,
but it's a good track.
Yes, it is a phenomenal.
It's got a very Mega Man kind of Castlevania feel to it, so I figured you would like this one.
Oh yeah, hell yeah! This is awesome. Actually, I let the soundtrack loop because when you picked this, you put it up on the document that we work with every week, and you put the YouTube link so that it did the whole soundtrack.
Yeah.
So I listened to it in the car on my way to work and just let the whole thing play and was like, that was awesome. That was a great song. And then I was like, wait a minute. I'm at work. Like, I just got here.
How did I get here?
It's been like an hour. How is it that I listened to the entire soundtrack and thought it was one song?
See? There you go.
But yeah.
You know it's good.
It's great stuff. I mean, it's got the galloping bass that I love so much and uplifting, high energy melodies. It's good stuff.
Yeah, nice little beat.
Yes.
Keeps you running through. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's got that very heroic sound, and that really fits the kind of game that it is. Great Battle Cyber is one of the first games in the Katsuhiro series. And so basically these were like crossover games where characters from like Gundam and Kamen Rider and Ultraman, they would all kind of get together in SD form and go through platforming adventure on their own. So
It's like Japanese Smash Brothers.
essentially, or like YY World, the
Right.
Konami Heroes, like that kind of game.
Very
but,
similar.
but with characters from like the Bandai stuff.
It's a little more simplistic visually, though. Like, there's not...
This game was, yeah.
Yeah, there's not a lot going on in the game. I mean, you're going through and you'll see one enemy. It'll be like, one enemy, kill. Move on. One enemy, kill.
Yeah.
Move on. It reminded me a lot of Chojin Sentai Jetman in that aspect.
Yeah, I think because the characters were so big and detailed,
Yes.
lots of animation,
Yeah.
that they were only kind of... That's just the kind of style of gameplay they wanted. They wanted big characters with a lot of detail to fight amongst themselves. But if you put tons of characters on there, you're going to end up with a lot of flicker. And
Yes.
the NES just couldn't handle that. So it was kind of a design choice that they made, which kind of limited them in terms of what they could do. So there was a lot of platforming elements where there weren't a lot of enemies on the screen. And then you would get to kind of a flat area, fight one enemy, which was a longer battle than usual than you would fight, in
Right.
a normal platforming game. So I guess lots of series of sub-bosses
Like a
mixed with platforming elements.
Yeah, or like a fighting game in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I know that they were kind of going for. That's kind of the vibe that I got from it, was like a platforming fighting game.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it kind of reminded me of Battletoads a little bit, because
Yeah.
you've got these areas where you've got to jump from hook to hook, and they're like going down these diagonal ramps, but there's spikes all around you, kind of like the snake level
Yeah.
in Battletoads. So there's stuff like that. This whole Compati Hero series is tons of great games that you don't need to know a lot of Japanese for in order to
Right.
play, because they're so action oriented. So a lot of these titles, when I was first getting into like import Super Nintendo and Nintendo games, these are the titles I would kind of look for. Anything with SD at the beginning
Right.
usually was kind of a fun action game that you didn't,
Import
unless
friendly.
you really, really wanted to know the story, you didn't really need to know a lot of the language to be able to play. So,
Thanks, Ed. Now I got to go find this one.
yep, definitely do it. It's a lot of fun, and
Yes.
it's got a great soundtrack, of course. So, a little bit about the composer, Junya Kozakai. We don't know too much about him or her. They were an employee of Arc System Works, also known as Kozakai Pro, on a couple of their games.
Right.
We talked about them a little bit on our PC Engine TurboGrafx 16 episode. He was one of the composers on that game, Hani on the Road.
Honey on the Road.
Hani on the Road and Hani in the Sky. I think he also, or she also. I don't know their gender, but so that's really about it. There isn't too much.
Attack helicopter.
Attack helicopter.
That's their gender.
right. An Apache attack.
Yes.
Memes are weird.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, Great Battle Cyber, good game. Go check it out, as well as a lot of the other games in the Great Battle or the SD.
Don't tell me what to do. You don't control me.
I am making a recommendation.
Yeah. No, I agree.
I'm not forcing you.
No, you're twisting my arm.
Twisting your cyber arm.
And now I have to go buy it because it looks really fun.
Well, I'm glad I could convince you.
Yes, sir. Now it's time for me to convince everyone to go buy this game. Gravity Rush is our next game. This came out on the PlayStation Vita in 2012, and the remastered version came out on the PlayStation 4 in 2016. This track is Assault Snida, or Snida?
Snida, that's how I pronounce
Snida,
it.
yeah.
Cnida.
Sure. And it's by Kohei Tanaka. Welcome back. That was Gravity Rush on the PlayStation Vita in 2012 and PlayStation 4 remastered in 2016. The track is Assault Snida. Snida.
We'll go with Snida.
Snida. And it's by Kohei Tanaka. I've been wanting to talk about this game for months. It is fantastic. Do whatever you're doing right now. Stop. Go buy this game.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
All right. See ya. All right. Welcome to PixelTunes Radio. This is Mike giving you all the awesome jams.
Oh, good thing. That was a quick chop.
Yeah.
I just
Good
bought
game,
the collector's
right?
edition.
Nice.
Played the whole thing through.
Sweet.
Sucked.
So, Gravity Rush is a really cool game. I'm just going to say. It's called Gravity Days in Japan.
D-A-Z-E.
D-A-Z-E, yes. The game originally came out on the Vita, where it got rave reviews. Definitely well-deserved. The game plays... There's a lot of influence from the game Crackdown on the Xbox, which I need to play.
Oh, yeah, I played that.
Xbox
Okay.
360. Basically, the way that the game works is you start off and you wake up as this girl named Kat. And she doesn't really know who she is. She kind of wakes up. She's suffering from amnesia. And you find she's got this little kitty with her. This little black cat. But the cat's not just black. It's like translucent, starry, like
Yeah.
spacey looking. And she names the cat Dusty. And essentially what happens is you wake up and you're in this world. You don't really know too much about it. It's this place called Hexville. And it's a floating city. The whole area that you traverse is floating in the sky. Something happens where like she triggers this space cat to start turning the gravity completely upside down. And so you start realizing you can float and you can travel through gravity. You're just like floating through the sky.
You can adjust gravity. You can make gravity pull you in different directions.
Right.
You can walk on the sides of buildings, fall in between alleys.
Right.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, you could like trigger the gravity so that you're lifted up, and then you can pretty much like trigger it again to go in whatever direction that your circle is pointing at. It's really fun. It takes a little getting used to regarding the controls, but the whole purpose of the game is you're going through, you're beating these bad guys called the Nevi, which is like these like blob kind of anthropomorphic like creatures that show up. They're like these black ooze kind of demons. And so you're going through the game just trying to defeat these Nevi. The game is pretty detailed for being a Vita game. Like I was very impressed on the PlayStation 4 version, which is the version that I have. Going through this game, it feels very large and very...
in charge?
In charge. Yeah, it's very large and in charge. They start calling her, this girl, Kat, the Gravity Queen, because, they see her and she's essentially, you're kind of like changing the way that people think about you as you're going through the game. They hate you at first because you almost killed this, they basically destroyed this older man in his young child's house. So throughout the entire game, you see these two characters, and they're just like never happy. Like you could do you save the boy, and you bring him back to the father, and the father's like, "You destroyed my house! Like what the hell?" So it's pretty funny. It's got this like great charm to it. It feels like Zelda meets like I don't know, I guess Saints Row in a way, because there's these mini games that are all spread out throughout the entire game, and so you find one. And it's basically you're throwing these gems that you collect into this like little trash can type thing, and it makes the minigame appear basically by repairing a transportation item, like an elevator or a Ferris wheel, or you're basically like repairing various different things throughout the game. And as you repair them, it opens up a mini game, which is basically like a time trial sort of thing, where you have to get either bronze, silver, or gold in these time trials. So it's awesome because it makes you want to do better, and you're like, okay, I can do this, I can do this. So you're constantly going back to these mini games throughout the game. There's tons of DLC that was included in the PlayStation 4 version, where you can get different costumes and stuff. And the different costumes aren't just like stupid random DLC costumes. They actually open up like a whole new chapter of side quests that you can do. There's this one where you're a maid, where you have to go through and basically fetching ice cream for this woman. So I could seriously talk about this game all day, so I'm going to shut up. But just trust me, go out and buy it. I beat it fairly recently. I'm going back through again just to get all the side quests and get gold on the mini games, so really good. This track in particular takes place like you've joined the military that's taken over to try to beat the Nevi, and so there's this whole militaristic like movement that's going through, and you meet this character. She doesn't really like you, and she's not really like, she's very like angsty and angry at you, and so you end up joining up forces with her, which she really hates, and you're taking on the Nevi. So you're going through, and it's cool. This track is like Metallica meets David Bowie.
Wow, I didn't get that at all.
Really? Well, like the drums are like totally Metallica.
I got like rockabilly.
Okay,
like rockabilly meets like Fiddler
that.
on the Roof with like those clarinets. Like they felt like a very like traditional Jewish music. Like
I guess
just at the beginning. The rest of it felt more like a rock.
Well, it's
like
clarinets.
Rock.
It's clarinets in the beginning, and then it jumps into like that saxophone.
Right.
Which that whole saxophone part is like total David Bowie.
Early Bowie.
Yeah, like those saxophone stabs. I mean, you start off with the drums, and they're like totally straight up hard rock, Metallica type stuff, heavy metal.
Like Garage Days style stuff.
Yeah. And then it kind of, in the background, you hear like these very like twinkly notes that kind of, go through, like kind of flutter through. And then it jumps over to the main like clarinets and the saxophone and everything. So
it's got a lot of everything in it.
A lot of energy, really cool track. That's where this takes place, this militaristic kind of joining of forces to combat the Nevi. So good stuff.
Right on.
Yeah. For the composer,
I think we've talked about Kohei Tanaka before. He's done a lot of stuff.
Yeah, mostly the Sony type stuff. Mostly is stuck with Sony, Xbox 360, that era. Gravity Rush Remastered, and Gravity Rush 2. He did the music for all of them, so if you like the first game soundtrack, you'll love the second. A lot of really great tracks. I'm sure we'll play something in the future from it. He also worked on, in 1990, Cybernetic High School Part 3 Gunbuster, and that was his first game. Later on did Paladin's Quest in 1992, the original score for that. Sakura Taisen in 1997 was the composer and music director. He did the Grand Stream Saga, which was a PlayStation 1 RPG, as well as Alundra in 1997, Alundra 2 in 1999, Legend of Legaia in 1998. So a lot of RPGs in his early PlayStation career.
At least in the US, Alundra's pretty much what he's the most well known for, aside from Gravity Rush nowadays.
Yeah, he's definitely like done quite a bit. Also, Bionic Commando in 2009, he did a couple
of orchestral tracks he did for that.
Yep. So lots of cool stuff from this guy. I picked up Gravity Rush 2, and I've been forcing myself not to play it
until you finish the first one.
Well, I finished the first one, but I'm going back and I'm like trying to get all the other like odds and ends, like the mini games and stuff like that. I'm trying to like finish that so I can get like, I want 100% this game. This is the one game, like I'm not really as big into achievements as I used to be, but this is definitely a game where I'm like, I have to 100% this game. Cool. Like I really want to.
I know the feeling.
Yeah, man. So, but it's good stuff.
Cool.
So I'm not playing Gravity Rush 2. I'm trying to beat other games in my backlog. So that's why I started going through Star Ocean instead.
Nice.
Yeah. All right, what do we got next?
Next up is Mega Race. This is the Sega CD version of the game. Came out in 1994. Track is from the Meva stage, composed by Stefan Peak. All right, that was Meva from Mega Race on the Sega CD, released in 1994, composed by Stefan Peek. Game is awful. This was probably a contender for the question at the beginning of the show. Really good soundtrack, really bad game.
Yeah.
It's one of those first, like, integrating full motion video with real gameplay style games that CD games started off with. But this soundtrack, man, I mean, okay, so this original game, I think, started on the Amiga. And so there was an Amiga Tracker soundtrack that Stefan Peek composed, and then he ported it to the Mega CD. And everybody always says the Amiga version is so much better. I just don't think those people are FM fans. This song sounds so unique. I think fans of like Jesper Kid's work would really appreciate this. I mean, it sounds a lot like Batman or PES Soccer, on one of those games you worked on for the Genesis.
Yeah, not as harsh sounding.
Exactly,
as those.
a little more melodic.
Those are a little bit more abrasive. This beginning is weird though. Like, I was listening to this track initially. I was like, ugh. I sighed because the beginning starts off and I'm like, oh, Ed, what did you pick?
So good.
And then it rolls into that awesome dance. Dun-dun-dun-dun is like total like 90s techno.
I got like Static X, like dance metal.
Yeah, yeah.
Da-da. You can play that on guitar or synth.
Definitely. And that I was like, all right, I'm in. This is awesome. But man, that beginning, I was like, oh God, Ed, why? What did you do?
No, it's a little dissonant.
It's so
there.
weird.
It's very dissonant. It's just, I was intrigued because you don't hear music like that.
No, I agree.
Or sounds like that coming out of a Genesis.
Yeah.
And this did use, I think, some Sega CD hardware,
Like
although
sequenced audio.
When I look at like the VGM file and it kind of tells you which chips are being used to make the music, it doesn't list the Sega CD hardware at all. So if this uses only Genesis hardware, then that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't even use like any of the like the Sega PSG stuff, like the Master System hardware at all.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's using just the YM2612. I don't know. It's just, this whole soundtrack has very unique tones, very unique music. Stefan Peek has been a composer for quite a long time, like famous for doing a lot of the PC-CD audio and a lot of the Amiga Tracker stuff. So he didn't really touch FM very much. So hearing him do like this soundtrack was kind of a treat for my ears because it's so like industrial but like melodic at the same time. I really thought it was very cool. I got introduced to it by a podcast called Audio Panic Room. And it's kind of a tiny little bit self-promotion because I do the voiceovers even though I don't produce the podcast.
Okay.
It's basically like a playlist, but I just basically announce, like if you listen to our mixtape that we did for the exercise show, very similar to that. That was this track, this is that track. So of course I listen to it because I kind of do the voices for it. And so the person who puts it together played a track from this game, and I was like, it was basically a show that was based around Stefan Peek's work.
Right. Oh, okay.
And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So I started going through the soundtrack, and I found this one, which I really like too. Cool. So that's how I found it. But yeah, the game, like I said, it's full motion video of a racetrack, and then you're basically moving your sprite back and forth, and pressing the acceleration button basically just makes the full motion video play, so it seems like you're going down the track.
See.
And then the other cars are just other sprites that kind of it's
kind of
very
like
stiff.
that arcade game that came out like back in the late 70s, early 80s, where it's like it was just a car, and you were just moving the car itself back and forth,
this is
not that the wheels were...
a higher technology version of that kind of game.
Gotcha.
But it was released on like Sega CD, 3DO, Amiga, and I think MS-DOS, just to kind of showcase FM video and what it can do when combined with actual gameplay elements. It didn't age well at all. It wasn't really received very well when it came out. The good thing about it is just kind of like a soundtrack delivery system for Peek's soundtrack. Yeah. He is a French composer. He started his career in 1987, but back then he was pretty much just programming games. From like 1983 to 1987, he was doing games for the Amstrad CPC and the ZX Spectrum. Right. And so his company started porting games to the Amiga, and he would add in little incidental pieces of music here and there. And the publishers that he was making these games for really enjoyed his incidental music that were mostly original and not in the original ports. So they kept asking him to do more and more music. So he started eventually becoming kind of like a full-time composer. His most famous soundtrack is the one for Doom, the strategy game that came out on the PC. Dune, like spice.
Yes.
Like spice. Like the spice. he developed a driver called Herod, and that was for the Creative Labs AdLib card, which was FM based. So
Right.
I think that kind of explains why this is such an original sounding soundtrack on the Sega CD, because I think maybe he adapted his driver that he created for the AdLib card to start working with this. And so, like Hitoshi Sakimoto and all those people who develop their own sound drivers all have their own unique sounds.
Right.
This is probably why he did Mega Race so uniquely.
Interesting.
Other notable games that he's done for the PC, KGB, and Riverworld was his last title in 1998. Very recently, like 2015, they did a remastered Mega Race soundtrack. It was on Kickstarter. The original soundtrack was all mono and kind of compressed, so what they did is they went in with new instruments and new hardware, remastered it, made the whole thing in stereo, full stereo quality.
Nice.
So now we've got an official, real Red Book audio version of the Mega Race soundtrack, and based on this music, you can tell it's really good stuff, so it's worth checking out.
Riverworld, I picture, is just a game where you're going down a river in a log.
Rolling down a river.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
the prequel to Waterworld.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. You could write about it in your diary, girl.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. At least
Wow.
at least you'd have someplace good to just float down the river.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay. All right. So let's move into our last game.
Thank God.
Yes, this is Cybernator for the Super NES. This came out in 1991. The track is Asteroid Run, and we have to credit it to Opus Corp. And there's also evidence of Masanayo Akahori doing the soundtrack. So yeah, Cybernator, this track is awesome. So let's end it with a bang. Welcome back. That was our final track of the episode. Cybernator was the game, Super NES, and 1991 was the year of release. The track is called Asteroid Run, and it's credited to Opus Corp and most likely Masanao Akahori. So, Cybernator is an interesting little game. It's a mech game. You know what it reminds me of is the
Night
game...
Slave.
What?
Night Slave?
Night Slave.
That's the PC 98 game.
I think so. Yeah. Either that or there's one other. There's a Sharp X68000 game.
Genocide X2 or something like that?
Genocide 2, I think it was. Yeah. That's what this game reminds me of. You're going around in a giant mech, shooting at turrets and all sorts of stuff. You play as this character named Jake, if I recall. And the funny thing is, when the game starts off, it has his name. Like, your ship blasts off and you're going into the level. There's like, two different mechs that go before you, and then you go, and then the microphone kicks on and the text scrolls, and it says Jake, and then colon, and then it says, "This is Jake," which I thought was pretty.
My name is
silly.
Flip.
Yeah. My name is Flip. Yeah. By the way, my name is Flip. I forgot about that. Stupid little Nemo. So. This game is really fun, and it's got some really awesome energetic music, such as this track, like a great little 80s dance number, full of really high-end synths and
Imagine all these mechs doing a little dance.
yeah, just like mechs working out.
Yeah, I got kind of a shoot 'em up feel to this track, like
definitely.
Gradius, without all the crashy cymbals and textured synths and stuff. But
it's very
Super Nintendo.
I was going to say very Contra 3
Oh, yeah.
as far as the sound font itself goes. Yeah, you're going through, you're blowing up enemies and whatnot. Trying to get to the end of the stage. It's very like open ended. Like the stages aren't like they're very like full and big,
right?
And they don't feel closed off or small like in Genocide 2.
They're like Sonic the Hedgehog style levels,
yeah, kind
almost,
of in a way,
without the gotta go fast stuff.
No, not going fast, but just more like exploratory. Like you can go and find various different power-ups and whatnot in these little tiny boxes, which I honestly thought that they were part of the background initially, but they're not.
Oh.
And so you blow up these boxes and they give you different power-ups to either boost your health or boost your attack. So the attack numbers...
Or I think the amount of time you can boost, like, because you can jump and use your feet as rockets and give you increased lift there, too.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, you start off with, like, a regular cannon, and you can kind of upgrade the cannon so that it, like, bounces off the walls and stuff. Yeah. That's really helpful.
Speaking of which, the detail in this game is really cool, too, because when you shoot your machine gun, you see the shells coming out of your arm and stuff. I rented this game when I was a kid, my brother and I, and we really liked it. Yeah. We had a lot of fun with it, but I remember it being really hard.
It's really difficult.
I got to stage 3, but that was about it.
I got to stage 4 and then I ran out of continues, but I really struggled with stage 2 because it switches in the beginning so that you're not just like walking around. Instead, you're like kind of floating and you have a rocket pack.
Oh, yeah.
And so you're getting shot like basically out of your ship and you're going through an asteroid field and you've got to blow up the asteroids.
You gotta use a button to turn around, don't you, or something like that?
No, it's more like you're not turning around.
If you're holding the button down when you turn, then you walk backwards while shooting, but if you let go of it, then you can turn. I remember there being something weird with the turning.
Yes, but in regards to the asteroid field, like if you hit one of the big asteroids, you're done. Okay. So it's like a one-hit game over.
So you gotta memorize the stage.
Yeah, you gotta memorize it, they're not really that hard to dodge, so to speak, so it's not really that bad. But yeah, the game is really fun. It's a run and gun basically. So if you're familiar with Contra, it's very similar to Contra but in a mech, I guess you could say.
Cool.
When you blow up other mechs, you'll see like little enemies, like little bad guys, like get out of the mech and then like run away to cower, to hide. It's not like Genocide where you can like kill them or anything like that.
Yeah, right.
But it's cool. It's a fun action run and gun game. I will say I'm a little disappointed that there was some censorship or some content that was removed from the game. For example, there are little like windows that you get to see the characters' faces when they talk. And I think they do have that in the Super NES version in terms of like at the end of a conversation at points. Where they'll show like a much bigger image of the main character Jake, and then you'll see like your like female correspondent who's like telling you what to do or whatever. Yeah,
codec style.
Yeah, kind of. In the game, in the American version, whenever dialogue boxes like appear, you just get dialogue. You get no box to tell you the picture of the character. And they remove that in the US version.
Probably for memory constraints, because I know like when a lot of people do fan translations, because you need so many more English characters to say the same thing that you do in like kanji.
Yep.
A lot of times that kind of like means that you have to cut some stuff to add more characters in. So
most likely
it was probably something that they didn't want to cut, but they had to just for technical reasons.
Yeah, most likely.
Kind of lame.
Yeah, unfortunate, but I mean, you still understand. You just don't get a face to who you're
right. It'd be nice to kind
of
humanize the people that you're playing with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're just basically playing as somebody telling you what to do, and then you're playing as Jake, the random
voice.
Yeah, random dude in a mech. So, but yeah, music's great, gameplay's great. Unfortunately, a lot of people think that this is a prequel to Metal Warriors, which is a very, very expensive game. This is not. It's not a prequel at all. It's very similar.
They're spiritual kind of sequels to each other or something.
I guess you could say that. I mean, they both are mech-based games. I think Metal Warriors is a little different. It's also 2-player Metal Warriors, so you can like go head-to-head, whereas Cybernator is just like a 1-player like run and gun experience. So,
and like Genocide and Night Slave, this genre of game has been around for a while. So Metal Warriors isn't just because it plays similarly doesn't mean that it's like related at all. It's a specific genre of platformer that was very popular in Japan, and a lot of the titles didn't make it out over here.
Right.
So the ones that we are familiar with, we think they're connected because those are the only two we know about.
I got a lot of vibes for Genocide 2. So if you like Genocide 2, you like the music from Genocide 2, I think you'll dig this one. But I struggled because Masanayo Akahori is labeled as the composer on, I believe, the soundtrack itself, because the soundtrack did get like a rearrangement and a re-release in Japan. He's done a ton of stuff, mostly all Japanese-based games, except for a few weird choices. He started off with Ranma Half Chonai Gekito Hen, and that was in 1992. He also did Final Stretch in 1993, where he was credited for sound. He did the music for Nosferatu, which I know you're a big fan of, in 94, Brainlord in 94, Princess Quest Mahjong Sword in 95. Jumping ahead a little bit, he did Rabbit in 1997, and then X Squad in 2000. Then he jumped over to, believe it or not, EA, where he became a sound artist for FIFA 2001 Major League Soccer in 2000, FIFA Soccer 2003 in 2002, and then Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, Need for Speed Most Wanted in 2005, and his final game, composition-wise, was Mirror's Edge. He was a sound designer on.
Yeah, I think he worked mostly on their GameCube ports, so maybe he just had some better knowledge of the GameCube audio and was helping them out with that stuff.
Yeah, very weird, though, for a Japanese composer to jump ship
Normally
to
don't see him for EA or something like that,
Yeah. And then as far as Opus Studio, because I believe Opus Studio was the game developer that was most likely hired on, and maybe he was like a...
Yeah, it was a contractor.
Yeah, a contractor for them. They've done tons of games. I'm not even going to get into it. Their latest game was 2012, Half Minute Hero Super Mega Neo Climax Ultimate Boy.
Right. And they were responsible for gathering all those composers together to make the soundtrack for that game.
Yep, so a lot of the games that he worked on were also done by Opus Corp.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
That about does it for the show.
Yes.
Thank you guys for listening. If you found any music on this show that you really enjoyed that you didn't know about before, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah.
Also, if there's any composers that you're more interested in, you can find the post where the show is located on our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/PixelTunesRadio. Comment to your heart's content. Share some other stuff that might be related to this show. You can also check us out at Twitter at PixelTunesRadio.
You can also check us out on youtube.com/dongold, or just type in Pixeltunes Radio on YouTube. We did want to make one quick announcement. There's also a video that will be sent out way before then, so you guys will probably see the video before you'll hear this announcement. But if you are somebody who kind of bounces back and forth between YouTube and pixeltunesradio.com or iTunes, where you can find us, you may have noticed that the episode 89, the Undercover Cops episode, kind of showed up and then kind of disappeared.
Very quickly, yeah.
Very quickly, so it's not going to get a lot of views, unfortunately, because it was brought down by the copyright hammer.
Yeah.
Multiple tracks were assigned to Victor Entertainment. Unfortunately, Victor Entertainment decided that they were going to limit the episode so that it can't be played in Mexico, the United States, and I think Canada, and maybe somewhere else,
which is
South Korea.
Yeah, which is weird because they own the rights to the music because they released a soundtrack CD of the game, of the arcade version of the game, only in Japan.
Right.
But then they limit it in countries that are outside of Japan. So I don't know how that works, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But you can always listen to the show on all of our other channels.
Yeah,
so.
It's just an unfortunate side effect of posting stuff to YouTube. Unfortunately, not much we can do about it. We could technically rip the tracks out and put like YouTube links, but I didn't want to do that because not only is it a lot of work, but also it's just like you're going to be clicking YouTube links constantly,
pausing and clicking and jumping back and forth.
Yeah, it's just silly. So yeah, if you can listen to the episode on pixeltunesradio.com or listen to it on iTunes or Stitcher or whatever your podcast grabber is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. You can also check out my other show, Impulse Project, at impulseproject.info. We do a lot of demo scene and tracking community stuff there, C64.
You guys just put out a new episode.
Amiga. We were on a hiatus for quite a while. Like, we took like a 6-week break because of some personal stuff. Just came back, and then next episode we're going to do a whole feature on like the Atari ST sound chips and all the music from that. So
very cool.
Very cool stuff.
Cool. Nice. So what do we got next?
Next up, we're going to do, basically kind of inspired by the TurboGrafx-16/PC Engine show that we did, which we got a lot of great feedback from. We're going to do the same thing with the Sega Saturn. So I'm going to take import Sega Saturn soundtracks. You're going to take American-released Sega Saturn soundtracks, and we're going to throw them all into a big blender and spit out a big show smoothie.
Gross.
A Saturn smoothie. Delicious.
Chips.
So Expect a lot of cool Red Book audio, a lot of Japanese composers, a lot of stuff from Sega. Should be a great time.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I think it'll be good stuff. And it's not going to be exclusive US stuff because there was very, very little US-based exclusive content for the Sega Saturn.
Right,
It was
exactly.
mostly Japanese, so
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll go back and
Stuff
forth. We're
that
still
North
working
Americans
out
are familiar with.
Yeah, I mean, we're still working out the details for it, but, you guys will definitely hear some amazing tunes. It's going to be a great show.
For sure.
Yes.
Did you want to talk about Too Many Games?
Yeah, let's talk about Too Many Games. So I am going to be at Too Many Games. I'm going to be hanging out. I'm actually going to be doing a panel with the gentleman, my good friend Jeffrey Winton Hagen, who does the Hagen's Books line.
The coffee table books.
Yeah, those coffee table books. Basically does like Super NES, NES. He's putting together an NES Oddities book, which I'm actually going to be taking part in as well. So he's having an NES Oddities panel. It's Friday, June 23rd. That's going to be at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you are going to the Too Many Games show, definitely jump on nice and early for that panel. It's going to be a blast. And then I'm also going to be at the Rhythm and Pixels panel, which is going to be on Sunday, the 25th. So the whole convention runs from the 23rd through the 25th. So definitely jump on and say hi, and we'll be chatting about video games and video game music.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Love to hear about it when you get back.
All right, cool.
All right.
So that's going to wrap it up for the show. Thanks so much for listening. Episode 90, it's so crazy.
I know.
And now we're jumping on to 91. So we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Peace out.